Coming up this week on Beyond the Vibe, we're joined by Tory Redfern.
I got it mastered at Abbey Road because I got the mixes, and I thought, right, I've got to get it mastered. And I thought, well, I've put so much into getting these guys in, getting it done at Rockfield. And I thought, right, the only place to go is Abbey Road. How much detail is in vinyl. There was more detail listening to, I've got my studio monitors, which should sort of give you everything. But listening to the test pressings, the detail of the top end of the reverbs and things that I hadn't heard, man, it was all in there. I ended up sitting next to Bumblefoot, and he was just a super cool guy. He's got a really sort of great sense of humor, and he's just self-deprecating, and he's just no ego. He's just a really cool, you couldn't get a nicer chap. And Bumblefoot said, "Oh, you coming to the jam?" And I said, "What jam? I haven't heard anything about it, man, so probably not, And he said, no, come on. So we went up, and got to side stage, and Anthony Gomez is finishing off his set. He's doing his encore and all this stuff, and Bumblefoot goes out, and this festival was like, it was a packed, audience, all sort of like surging of audience, and Bumblefoot goes out and does Knocking on Heaven's Door because, his Guns N' Roses connection, and they come back off stage. Anthony and Bumblefoot come off side stage, and Bumblefoot says, one more, and Anthony was done, he finished, but he respected Bumblefoot. I could see this sort of like, he didn't know what to say to the guy because he was trying to pressure him. And he said, all right, man, one more. And then Bumblefoot gives me his double neck guitar, and sort of I go out and do the last song. It was fantastic, which is kind of scary because it's one of the necks is fretless. And I've never played fretless guitar, so I'm kind of like going out on stage with a big old audience thinking, Jesus, man.
Hello and welcome to Beyond the Vibe, the show that cuts deep into the world of music.
My name is Aaron Day.
I wish I had that on shot. I've just missed it.
Do you want to do it again? Do it again now.
It's going to be staged.
No, staged is alright.
We'll carry on. We'll soldier on.
Oh, I did it so quick.
That would have looked amazing.
I did it so quick. Let me do it again. Am I on now?
Go on,
This is how quick it was. And literally nobody would have known. It was perfect.
It was almost seamless.
My name is Aaron Day, lead guitarist of UK band These Wicked Rivers, and I'm here with music videographer
You
and
almost
photographer.
forgot.
No, I didn't forget. I was just doing the power of the pause. I'm here with music videographer and photographer. It's Mr. Ryan Macy.
It is.
In the house.
Literally
In the house.
Yes. Who have we got this week?
This week we've got Mr. Tory Redfern, slide guitar man. We're big fans of the slide guitar, aren't we?
When I stumbled on when we were looking through his content, that Sign of the Times song where he's just stood in some valleys somewhere.
He likes being in
with
valleys,
that kick drum and playing the slide. If you haven't seen that, I would advise you to go and check it out if you're not familiar with his content. But yes, big on slide. You
normally get much more excited when there's a bit of slide.
I get very excited when there's a bit of slide. It comes from my dad. He's the same. I sent my dad that same video, and he was like, I like this.
And then did he go, because it's got slide?
Yeah, because it's got slide in it.
No, I'm also a big fan of slide, and I've tried to play slide for many years, and it's hard. So I always respect a very good slide player, which is Mr. Troy. Now, I'm very into that. So we're both like that Neil Young, and I'm really into Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, and I think Troy evokes a lot of that. Obviously a more rockier side with this new album, and I really enjoyed chatting to him. It was good. We vibed with Mr. Redfern, didn't we?
Yeah, it was just really interesting, and
we're all equally very good looking, aren't we? I think that's the.
I don't know. I was feeling a bit threatened there.
He's a good looking lad.
But when he as you'll see, he does show off a bit of his guitar.
Like it's very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, really interesting stuff. Yeah, I always like it when they do that.
Yeah, so. I know you do. I know. And you like your slide as well. So it's been a very enjoyable show for you this week, Mr. Basie, hasn't it? As for me, and I hope for the people watching at home, I must admit I was aware of Rochington, Rossington. I'll put myself on the spot now, of Redfern, Hutchinson and Ross.
Yes, very right good. Way round.
It's very good of me. I was actually amazed by myself that I remember that. I was aware of them being on the gigging scene, but this is the first time I was really properly listened to Troy, you know, in terms of his interview in the show, which is the good thing about the Vibe, you know, is that we get to listen to a lot of new music and we get our ears opened, you know, and I think that's a really healthy thing, and I'm really pleased that our ears are open to listen to a bit of Troy, because it's proper music, you know, whatever that is.
No, I totally get it. It feels just really like raw and real.
Yes. Definitely.
And I really vibe off it, and I think people will really enjoy the album when it comes out. At this point, by the time it is out, people would have heard the new single.
Yes.
Came
out yesterday.
Yes. So that was cool.
Yeah. So if you have listened to the single and you enjoyed it, you can enjoy the interview. And when will that interview be, Ryan?
You can hear that now.
So we're here with Tory Redfern. Thanks for joining us, brother.
How you doing, man?
All good, man. How are you, Mr. Basie? All right?
Oh, we are all good.
We're all good. Yeah. But I'm very happy to have you here, Troy. Thanks for joining us, man.
Nah, cheers for getting me on, man.
That's cool. So one thing that we like to do on the show is we like to go right back to the beginning of a musician's journey. So going back to the beginning for you, Troy, what came first? Was it guitar or vocals? Like, how did that start?
When I was a really young kid, you know, when I was about 6, I was a huge Queen fan, and you know, it was all about Freddie Mercury when I was a really young lad, you know, and I remember listening to Night at the Opera and hearing Brian May's Good Company track, you know, with all the production. Do you know that track?
Yeah, one of my favourite albums ever, man.
Yeah, mine too, man. And the production on that, even as a little kid, I remember the way the EQ, you know, Roy Thomas Baker had EQ'd the guitars to sound like a New Orleans jazz band and stuff like that, and that really, you know, had a huge impact. So I suppose sort of, you know, Queen, Brian May and all that was a huge sort of influence when I was a sort of kid. And then I saw Back to the Future in 1985, sort of been about 10 or 11. And I went out and bought a Van Halen cassette, and, you know, 1984, I think, was out around that time. So, though, you know, that sort of rock was a sort of big thing, and they got started buying Kerrang! Magazine and all that kind of thing. And but at the same time, someone lent me a Son House album, and I started getting into blues, Hendrix, and all that kind of stuff. You know, so as a kid, I was listening to sort of both that sort of heavy rock and blues, and then there was Aerosmith and sort of bands like, you know, all those sort of bands, that sort of LA rock thing. So yeah, it's kind of a combination of that. So but I think Back to the Future, seeing that, you know, the Johnny B. Good scene, I think that made me want to get a guitar. That was probably the pivotal moment. I thought, yeah, that's what I want to do.
So were you toying between vocals and guitar, obviously, at this point when you were getting into music, and like you say, or was it? Because for me, it was always guitar, kind of straight away. Were you toying between the two of them, and then there was a significant moment, or did you always have the two of them side by side?
I think it was mainly guitar. You know, I was interested in sort of, obviously it was mainly a frontman. When I was a really young kid, you know, you're drawn to the sort of the person, the singer, the show off guy, you know, who's you know, doing all this stuff. But I also remember listening to Rainbow, I Surrender. My brother had the 7-inch vinyl, and you know, I liked the guitar solo there. So I think it was, you know, as soon as I sort of got to that sort of like 8, 9, 10, you know, that sort of age, it became all about the guitar and not about vocals at all. You know, it was just, you know, when I was really young, I was sort of you know, frontman orientated.
It's interesting because I find there is that pivotal moment where you do assume that everybody wants to be the singer, and then when you hear guitarists really finding their voice, particularly like them iconic guitarists like you say, like Blackmore and Brian May. I mean, you summed it up really well in Night at the Opera, because Brian May is almost, his vocal track is his guitar, you know, his guitar tracks. He brings, it's almost a second vocal element to the band, you know, because of how instrumental and how iconic his sound is. And I had a similar moment, you know, with them sort of guitarists, where it's like, shit, I don't need to be a singer. I can still have that you know, place in a band that's just as iconic as being the Freddys, you know, of this world.
Yeah, and his voice, like his, you know, Brian May, more than anyone, I think, you know, you put a track on with Brian May playing on it, well, Queen albums, you know, not so much his solo stuff maybe, but, you know, he's got such a strong, distinctive character in his, you know, in his playing and his voice. I mean, you know, and that's what a lot of guitar players haven't got, that, you know, but he's someone who's sort of got such a distinctive thing going on, you know.
Yeah, it's really, really inspiring, man. Particularly when you're first getting into it and picking up a guitar, because it's like, well, where am I going to find my own voice? You know, and I get excited about the idea of going on that journey and see, you know, when you first start to track and record your own stuff, you know, you start to find that voice pretty easily.
Yeah.
Going into the tracking recording side of it, I mean, it's weird you mentioned Queen, because last year in lockdown was a big thing for me going through the Queen records. But last year you did something that I'd never really seen before. You either drank quite a lot of coffee, or went a bit mad, and you released not one, but not three, but about 5 albums in 1 year. Is that right?
Yeah.
What was the thought process behind that?
I mean, I've never seen anything like that.
It's amazing energy.
The first one was, I got a was it 4-week or 5-week tour? No, 6-week tour actually with Willie and the Bandits. Just before lockdown, we got 3 weeks into it and got sort of cut off. That's when lockdown happened. And I put an album out to go along with that tour, because the tour sort of came in through an agent sort of out of the blue, and I thought, right, I need something to take out and sell. So I put an album together, and that was This Raging Heart. We got cut off, and I thought, right, 2 weeks into it, you could see it was going to be sort of pretty bad. So I thought, right, I'm going to get on with something and do something a bit more acoustic sort of sounding, and because everything I've done is pretty sort of rock or blues rock. So I recorded an album called Island and promoted that a little bit, and then I just thought, I did a few live streams, but I thought, instead of doing that, wise just to sort of focus on recording and get a sort of product out, and keep the ball rolling, because that 6-week tour was like a really good tour. We were playing like Liverpool Philharmonic and really good venues, and things had just started moving up, and I thought, right, I need to keep this going. So I put another album out probably 4 months later, and then I put the leftovers from the first album, that out, and then another instrumental album, and then an improvised resonator album. I had this thing where I wanted to play for 30 minutes and just record one track, so it was just an improvisation stream of thought sort of thing. And it just because I've got my own studio, I record all the time, so I've got banks of songs on my hard drive. So it's kind of easy to sort of the instrumental album was stuff from sort of over the last 5 years. So I just pieced all this album together, things that sounded right and tracked right, and put that out. So I probably wouldn't have put all that stuff out if the lockdown hadn't happened. But it was cool. The instrumental one was a bit risky, because I'm known for being blues rock, and the instrumental thing goes from everything for like this a percussion and cello sort of track that sounds like Edgar Varese. And then you've got sort of instrumental things that sounded a bit like sort of a raw version of Satriani or something, So, but weirdly, that one sold probably the best of all of them. It was really odd. I was expecting people to go, what's this? But it was cool. It was cool in the way that it's like, okay, you can put something out and people will still accept it. So that meant, that means in the future you can take your blinkers off a bit and think, okay, it doesn't have to just be this.
It's a good opportunity as well for you to, like you say, experiment that and explore your own creativity without having that pressure that we all have, that we're on that constant journey, whereas we all got put on pause. And I think that took the pressure off all of us a little bit, as much as it meant it kind of was like, right, where are we going to focus this energy now? It meant that we had to be creative with that, and I really admire you for wanting to just get as much out as possible,
Yeah, well, it was this time to do it. There were no gigs and whatnot, and I was really pleased, especially Ireland. Some of the production, because I do mix and record myself, and so it was just. I'm quite proud of that one for just the production, because I had plenty of time to sort of really work hard on it and get it sounding good. That was good. It was good to get that stuff out, but obviously I'm not going to be able to do that this year or any other year, probably.
Just another 5.
You'll be dead by the end of next year. You'll be knackered, man.
So the upcoming album, Fire Cosmic, which is out August 6th, compared to your previous releases, did you approach this one any differently this time, whether that be in like the writing or the recording process?
Yeah, it was. In all aspects, it was different, because everything I've recorded up until now has been I've done everything, done the drums, done the bass, just done the whole lot, self-contained. And with this one, I wanted it to be a step up in production, and so I thought I'd hire people in, the best players I could find, and go and record it down at Rockfield. Get a producer in, which I've never done, which is quite a scary thing. If you're used to doing everything yourself, giving that to someone else to do is a really sort of quite a scary concept. But so there's a guy called Darby Todd. I don't know if you know Darby. He's a drummer. He played with like the Darkness, Robin Ford, and Guthrie Govan, and all those guys. He's like just a phenomenal rock player. And I met him in Poland. I'd been playing over there at a festival and bumped into him, and he said, "If ever you need a drummer, give me a shout." So he was the guy I went to. Usually sort of people talk nonsense when they meet each other at gigs, but I thought, right, no, I'll give him a bell. And he was up for it. And a friend of his called Dave Marks, a bass player, he said, get Dave, because those two work together a lot. So I knew they'd be a tight rhythm.
Yeah, have that partnership straight off the bat.
Yeah. And I sent them the demos, and there was no rehearsals. We went down to Rockfield, and they just absolutely nailed it. It was scary. It was I'd had a little run through. I'd done like a demo down in Brighton of the album with different players who hadn't sort of learned the material properly, so I had a different experience down there. Went down to Rockfield with these guys, and it was just like, Jesus, I was on the back foot. It's my material, but I was the one thinking, Jesus, these guys are great. It was all kind of like 2 takes, and they did all the rhythm tracks in probably a day and a half. We booked a couple of days just to get the basic rhythm tracks done, and I put a video of Scorpio up a couple of weeks ago, and the track, because luckily I videoed Darby playing, and that's the track without any fixes. You can see him playing in that track. There's no sort of edits, there's no drum samples, which is, I didn't want that. I didn't want to go to Rockfield, spend all that money on great drum rooms, and then have the producer sort of like fix the kick drum, or shift things around, so we're lucky in a way that there was no fixes. It is what it is. Obviously it's compressed, they do whatever whatever he's done to it, but the actual raw sort of soul stuff is as is.
Cool. And how did you find Rockfield in itself? I mean, we spoke to Stevie from the Bad Touch Boys the other day, and they went down to Rockfield, and he spoke about how the building almost had this harmonic kind of like I can't remember what he said. He said at one point it just started feeding back, and the building was singing back to him.
He said it was.
I don't know if he was pissed when this happened, but he was really inspired.
I know there are a lot of magic mushrooms in Wales, so maybe it's something to do with that.
I mean, did you find it as inspiring as Stevie did Under the Influence, or not Under the Influence?
But not for that reason. I didn't find it resonant in that way. But I think just going there and knowing the history of the place, and because as being a Queen fan, and
of course, man.
And Sheer Heart Attack being recorded there in Night at the Opera, all those layers of sort of things are in your head when you go there. So the expectations there, and with Darby and Dave have recorded like all over the world, those two guys, and they were excited to be there, which is great because you want your musicians fired up, and that definitely had an effect on the way everyone performed. They wanted to be there, they were excited to be there, the producer was excited to be there. So definitely that place brought something out, I think, of everyone's playing standards. Everyone just wanted to do their best in that place.
No, that's really cool, man. I love how, even talking about it now, how excited you are by it, because you can tell that at the time it's just how positive everyone was about working together around your material, and it's cool because I think because you've done everything organically up to this point, it's kind of like this is your reward, man. You know what I mean? Because you've really grafted and done everything organically, and then you've been given kind of the best option in terms of the opposite of that, really, in terms of great session musicians, great producer, great studio, so it feels like the ultimate kind of climax of that.
It is, man. It is. It genuinely is. It's always a risk because normally my budget's sort of next to nothing because I'm doing it myself. But this time's budget, it was a big budget. Everything cost a lot of money for this one. I got it mastered at Abbey Road because I got the mixes, and I thought, right, I've got to get it mastered. And I thought, well, I've put so much into getting these guys in, getting it done at Rockfield. And I thought, right, the only place to go is Abbey Road, so. And it was
go, isn't it?
And that was worth it. That really was. I looked at the resumes of all the different guys you can see on the Rockfield website of who's recorded what. And there's a guy called Frank Arkwright who'd done System of the Down across to ABBA. He was like really sort of like his massive scope, Biffy Clyro and all those guys. And I thought that seems to be the guy. There's some other guys who are more just rock orientated, but I thought it'd be good to have someone who's got a spread in there, sort of. And he was great. It sort of tightened up at the bottom end. It just brought things out that you couldn't quite hear. The guy got Paul Winstanley's mixes were fantastic, but it's that final polish. Again, it's expensive, but it's worth it. It really does sort of tie it all together.
And with that Go Big Go Home sort of man show, obviously Bumblefoot featured on the track Whole Fire. I mean, how did that come about?
Well, that was at the same. I met him over in Poland at the same festival I met Darby.
Right,
And it was really cool. It was, I tell you, man, it was really good. For 3 years, the festival organizer had been trying to get me there and say, this year we'll do it, and that year. And so he said, come over a day early so you can hang out and watch the bands. So instead of, I think we were playing on the Sunday, so he said, come over on the early Saturday and you can sort of hang out. And they got a press conference and everything. It was really sort of, they made this sort of big deal of this. They got the Polish Guitarist magazine there and all that kind of stuff. And I ended up sitting next to Bumblefoot, and he was just a super cool guy. He's got a really sort of great sense of humor, and he's just self-deprecating, and he's just no ego. He's just a really cool, you couldn't get a nicer chap. And I hung out with him, and then later that evening, Anthony Gomes, do you know Anthony Gomes? No. American guitar player.
No, I don't know, man.
He's kind of a blues rock guy, but he was headlining the Saturday night. And we were in the foyer, and Bumblefoot said, "Are you coming to the jam?" And I said, "What jam? I haven't heard anything about it, man. So probably not, And he said, "No, man, come on." So we went up, and got to side stage, and Anthony Gomez is finishing off his set. He's doing his encore and all this stuff, and Bumblefoot goes out. And this festival was like, it was a packed, audience, all sort of like searching of audience. And Bumblefoot goes out and does Knocking on Heaven's Door because, his Guns N' Roses connection. And they come back off stage. Anthony and Bumblefoot come off side stage, and Bumblefoot says, "One more, man, one more." And Anthony was done, he finished, but he respected Bumblefoot. I could see this sort of like, he didn't know what to say to the guy because he was trying to pressure him. And he said, "All right, man, one more." And then Bumblefoot gives me his double neck guitar, and sort of I go out and do the last song. It was fantastic, which is kind of scary because it's one of the necks is fretless. And I've never played fretless guitar, so I'm kind of like going out on stage with a big old audience, thinking, "Jesus, man."
What song did you do as well? Did you? That'd be my burst moment if you said, to me, "Oh, do you know this?" And I've got a fucking half fretless guitar, and I'm going,
"Off you go." Yeah.
I can't remember. It was a blues tune in A. I can't remember that.
That's all right. Yeah.
So it was just so I could flag that. But it was great. The energy was good. It was really interesting, going on stage on an encore and the energy is sort of up, because normally you sort of like when you're in a band, you build with the set. Yeah. But just hitting it when it's at its peak, it was great. So anyway, so I'd met him then, and then on the way back, I decided to give him a message and say, "You up for putting a solo on?" And this was in sort of back in 2019, because I recorded the album early 2020. So these days everyone's collaborating. Since lockdown, but back then, he was cool. He said, "Yeah." So I sent him the tracks when we'd finished them at Rockfield, and within about 2 days, he'd sent the track back with the solo and the extra guitar parts. And
awesome.
Really cool. He's just a sound guy. I did an interview with him just to talk about the album a little while back. And you couldn't get a nicer guy,
That's really cool, man.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Because you expect someone like that, that guy's played around the world, and but maybe that's why, the guys like that get hired, by bands like Guns N' Roses, because they're easy to get on with.
Yeah,
there's no bullshit.
That's true. Speaking of the album, is there like a personal favourite track for you on there, or like one that you'd kind of say for people to look out for?
I would say my favourite's "Waiting for Your Love." I think that one covers, the blues sort of thing and the rock thing, because it's definitely more of a rock album than anything else I put out. And I think that one covers those two sort of bases. "Love and War," I like that one as well. "Waiting for Love's great. It's kind of like a boogie sort of thing, but heavier. Boogie on steroids.
It's definitely one for the PR campaign. That
yeah.
We'll keep that quote. In terms of yourself as a performer, Troy, I think I find we all play kind of different characters, and we speak to different bands about this. In terms of when you're a kid and you're listening to, like we've already spoke about, different bands like Queen and stuff, you kind of form your own idea of what you're going to be like when you go out there on stage and take different inspiration. I think it's healthy to have that character, because then when you finish the gig, you can kind of leave it on the stage a little bit, and be able to kind of deal with the adrenaline that comes after it. In terms of yourself, was there any specific influence in terms of your own stage persona and that character that you play when you go out live?
It's probably just a mishmash of all sorts of things I've seen over the years. You know what I mean? And but at the same time, non-conscious. You know what I mean? That guy. I think some sort of some guys might go out and be very conscious of their body and their movements. With their legs definitely spread wide apart and all that kind of stuff. the vocabulary of body all their stances, and I don't do that. I'm not into kind of that sort of posing. So when I go, the main thing for me is when I'm playing is just to be able to switch off, and just play, and completely not be there. If I'm not there in a song, that's when it's usually good. And so being self-conscious about your body would definitely sort of like detract from that. You just want to be completely in the zone, not thinking about what you're doing at all, and hoping that you're sort of channeling something. You know what I mean? That's when it's good.
No, that's cool, man.
Now, when I saw the cover of the new album, I was kind of immediately drawn to it because I'm a bit of a superhero comic book fan.
Right, yeah.
And it has that real kind of Silver Age feel, that Marvel Comics kind of old style thing. How did that come about? Because it's just like really struck me as something totally different. You don't see that very often.
No, since I was a kid, I was, like you, probably like you, and I was a huge Marvel fan, and in the 80s, I remember Secret Wars coming out and all these kind of great titles by Marvel, and so I would always draw that stuff, I'd copy that stuff and try and do my own sort of versions of that, and that sort of carried on into my sort of 20s, and it's something I've always dabbled with, but then I started using Procreate. And that kind of opened a whole world up. This is quite recently. This is only sort of maybe 4 months ago perhaps. And I was like, Jesus, all those things I wanted to do when I was a kid, I can do it with this. I can actually actualize it, get it finished. And it all looks, So I did the first one, which is the one I've used as a cover, and I put it up on social media, and I was kind of a bit hesitant. It was a bit sort of like, because you made something up, I really liked it. I kind of I was really sort of, well, this is really cool, but at the same time, I thought maybe, it's one of me, you know what I mean? So I was having this bit of a dilemma about that, so I stuck it up, and the response was, it was really weird. I was shocked because there were people like Denny Wally, Frank Zappa's guitar player, who I'm a huge fan of, slide player, plays on Joe's Garage, and he was commenting on it. People like that. I was like, Jesus,
so cool, man. That's really cool.
I was shocked and blown away. And I was like, right. And I'd already hired a guy from Brazil to do the cover in a very sort of similar style. He was light years ahead of what I was doing, but I found this guy on Instagram, and I just found it, and I thought, right. So I booked him in, and I thought, no, I'll do this myself. There's been a great response to it, and I did one for Bumblefoot, and I did one for the other two members of the band, and that's going to be on the artwork, So I thought I'd go with it, and it's a bit weird because with that, originally the concept, because of the heaviness of the album, and it's quite big and ballsy, it was going to be like maybe a darker image, and this is kind of the opposite. This is very bright and kind of colourful, and so I did have that sort of dilemma: is this right for the album? But then I just thought, but once you've decided that's the album cover, that's it, isn't it? You know what I mean? No one's gonna, no one questions it. It's just that's the album cover. So I was pleased I went with that, because then it sort of ties into the music, something I've done, and then the album cover, something I've done. So that's cool.
No, it's cool. I think it definitely suits the album. I think it's cool, and I think it's like people say, when people learn the story that you've done it yourself, I think it gives that extra element to it.
Yeah. Hopefully, I did it as a gatefold as well. The vinyl. So
we like a gatefold.
Yeah.
I like
so
a gatefold anyway. I love a gatefold.
I always did as a kid. I remember sort of getting stuff that when I was younger, and sort of and that was always a sort of like a draw to me. I didn't go with the coloured vinyl because I spoke to lots of companies about vinyl quality, and they said, despite it looking great, if you want audio quality, you go with black vinyl. So I thought, right, no, I'll get the gatefold, but just keep the vinyl black.
It means a lot to me. You said that. It means a lot to me. My dad said that to me when I was about fucking 10 years old. I had the Rainbow album. Oh, I can't remember the name of the album. The one Since You've Been Gone on it and All Night Long. It might be called All Night Long. Anyway, and I've got that on coloured vinyl. I said to my dad, "Oh, look how sick this is!" And my dad was just there in the corner in a cloud of smoke, like Strider in the first Lord of the Rings, and he's like, "It's not as good quality." I just put it back in and then put my head down. It's like I failed him.
That was the thing, I thought the logic behind me choosing black was kind of like, I recorded down at Rockfield, got all these great guys in, spent so much on production and getting it mastered at Abbey Road, then to get it put on coloured vinyl to drop the audio quality, I'm like, I can't do it. But despite the fact that I think there's a lot of impulse purchase on coloured vinyl. That's why people do it. You see the coloured vinyl up there and people buy it just for the visual. And I get that, but I just thought, man, I can't do it. And I listened to the test pressings. A friend of mine has got like a 30 grand hi-fi system, and I went over to check the test pressings, and man, I was shocked because how much detail is in vinyl. There was more detail listening to. I've got my studio monitors, which should sort of give you everything, but listening to the test pressings, the detail of the top end of the reverbs and things that I hadn't heard. Man, it was all in there. It was yeah.
That's cool. Have you had any of your albums on vinyl, or is this your first?
No, it's the first one.
It's a bit of a job. We've not had any of ours. We're currently planning the second album. We're kind of writing it for vinyl, just because I think it just feels like a more emotional thing. I've been able to be involved with an album that ends on vinyl. It's particularly, like you say, with the gatefold, to be able to open it up and look at it and think, "Fuck, this is," I've been involved in this. It's cool, man.
Yeah, and that's when you can really, the artwork really works to me. When you've got, because when you're designing artwork, then it can be like, I know this is going to be big, and it changes the way you're sort of looking at that. But no, the detail, it was shocking. So if someone's got a good hi-fi, then a good turntable, they're going to get a great quality sort of product.
That's cool. In terms of a live setting, for those that have kind of discovered you during lockdown, as you said yourself, you kind of float between that blues and that rock world. Some people might have seen you with just you and your resonator, normally on a mountain or in the woods. And some people, some people like that. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I'd happily knock about some woodland with a resonator. But for people that haven't seen you live before, what's a usual, particularly kind of in terms of celebrating this album, what do you reckon a usual Tory Redfern live show will be? Will you take the guys out that you've recorded the album with on the road, or do you have guys in mind that you've always played with that you immediately think these are the guys I'll go out with?
I want to do at least sort of like a small tour with the guys that are on the album. They're big budget guys.
It feels right.
Yeah, they're big budget guys. You know what I mean? So it'll cost a lot to do it. Because they're not band members. I'm good friends with them, but that's their job, and they're well-paid musicians. You know what I mean? So, but I know that playing it with those guys would just be sort of phenomenal. I'll probably get another rhythm guitar player in because it's a heavy album, and I want that width. When you've got two guitars, you can definitely sort of like fill it out a bit more. I could do it as a three, but it's just something completely different. I think it needs a second rhythm guitar player. And then I'm playing Love Rocks beginning of June, and that'll be with Mike. Do you know Mike Ross? You've come across Mike, yeah. Mike's playing bass for me on that with his drummer Darren Lee. So we'll be playing a little bit of stuff, off the new album with those guys.
Cool.
It's one of those things because it's my band. I know I generally get different people in. I've had a couple of guys that have played with me for a few years, so they'll do gigs as well. And those guys are all happy to sort of like come and go. And
so you've done the Redfern, Hutchinson, Ross thing as well over the years, which some guys will know you for as well.
Yeah. We did 2 albums with that. We did Hotel Toledo was the last one we did, and that was like an instrumental album, which I thought was absolutely cracking because it was an improvised album. We went down there with no ideas, literally sort of like went into the studio with sort of like maybe a couple of riffs, and that's something you just generally don't do. No one books studio time with no ideas. You know what I mean?
It's fun. I bet it's fun though, isn't it?
It was because for that exact reason, because you're there and you've got great players, and you've got a drummer who sort of like can respond really quickly and all that kind of stuff. So you can just create stuff, and I loved it. It was definitely something different, and and it was a good band. Jack sort of left. Was that maybe a couple of years ago now? To do his own thing. He was focusing on his own albums and stuff, and I think me and Mike would just carry on doing it, just the two of us, or maybe get guest guitar players in. So if there's someone sort of like in a town we're doing a gig, if they want to come and play, then we can get one of those guys in.
Cool. That's cool, man. The reason I brought it up is because I think it's cool that you've got so much room to play with different musicians. I have to deal with I've had to deal with about the same 7 arseholes for about 3 arseholes for 7 years. And it's nice that you get to mix with different people, because I imagine long term it makes you a better musician, and probably makes them better musicians as well. It broadens your horizon.
Yeah. I think everyone ups their game a little bit, not in a competitive way, but just like, you're playing with these guys who are sort of good, and you want to get your thing good as well. You know what I mean? So you just sort of like everyone lifts a little bit. So no, it's cool. We've got some good gigs with, RHR. Got us good festival billings because it was 3 people. Where we may be halfway on the bill, RHR was kind of like topping the bill, and so it was good for that as well. Yeah.
Cool. Obviously, we've slightly touched on it there, but with gigs seemingly returning in the UK, do you have any concrete plans for a tour to celebrate the album? I know it's kind of difficult, isn't it, at the moment? But we're kind of.
Yeah. I'm looking. I've got the a 6-week. Well, actually, it's probably more like there's 2 months with Willie and the Bandits in March, April next year, and then I'll be doing my tour after that. So what I do is I'm going out with Willie and the Bandits solo. And then go out with the band after. So that'll be great actually to do that, because it's a UK tour over that long extended period. So I can sort of promote the album while I'm out on the road, and then go out and do the gigs after. And that's the way to do it.
No, that's cool, man. I was going to ask actually in terms of whether you do anything with just you and the Resonator. Will that be the Willie and the Bandits sort of vibe then?
Yeah. It's something I do a little bit of. It's not something I do much of. So
you're the band guy. Yeah.
I'm always a band guy, so it's going to be cool going out and doing that, because after 2 months of doing that night after night, I'll be bulletproof with that. You know what I mean? The first, the first few weeks are going to be sort of scary. You know what I mean? But because again, we're playing Liverpool Philharmonic, so going out to that big old stage by yourself. Normally I'm there with the volume and the band and everything, so that's going to be a different experience just going out there, but by myself. But I've got it'll probably be sort of a combination of sort of a electric resonator, kick, and that kind of stuff. So I'll design the sets, so it's nice and punchy.
That's cool, man. In terms of gear wise, because I love a good old gear chat. What do you use in the solo sort of thing, and what do you use in a band dynamic? What's your main go-to guitar when you're doing the solo stuff? Is it the same when you're doing the band stuff, and what's your normal go-to amp?
Amps have changed over the years. I've used Mesa Mark IVs and sort of AC30s, vintage ones, and the amp I've been using over the last couple of years, which is a fairly cheap amp, is a PV Classic 50. Do you know the sort of classic range?
Yeah, man, yeah.
The Classic 30 is obviously the one everyone knows, but the 50 is just the bigger version with the 2x12. And I just run the clean channel, so it's just clean channel. I use Hamida distortion pedal, which is a bit like the Zen Drive. Do you know what I mean?
The Zen Drive? Yeah, great pedal.
So it's like the Zen Drive, but with a lot more gain, and it's with a similar sound. So that's my main thing with the vintage 80s Rat. So I use that sometimes to boost it a little bit. But this guitar, you see that this is this is the main guitar. That's the thing I kind of use on the electric and acoustic.
Gorgeous, man.
So
did you chuck a Rat through that then? Did you chuck the 80s Rat through that?
Yeah, I can put the Rat and the Hamida through it, so I can have the Rat as a rhythm sound. Crank up. You think it depends where the amp is. If the amp is, let me think. If the amp is body side, it's okay. There's no feedback. If your amp comes around to the neck side, so if you end up being on a festival stage and your amp's kind of this side of you, that's when there's a problem, which is weird because you think it'd be kind of the other way around, But yeah, it's this pickup. I've got to see it. There's a Barker's Berry pickup in there. And there's guys like Chris Whitley used to use one of those, and they're kind of sort of humbuckery sort of, so that they're less kind of open than some of the resonator pickups, because I had a Crevo, and that's pretty much designed to kind of sound acoustic and be open and kind of capture, nuance. Whereas the high techs are more just like humbuckers. So it's more of an electric kind of sound. Yeah. Which is what I want, really. I want that to sound like a electric guitar with a scoop EQ, really. So that's why I'll be taking that one. And guitars are one I've got. And I've got this fella, which I've put one of these hot plates on, which is like a Telecaster pickup in there.
Cool.
So that'll be kind of cool because, again, that one with those kind of, standard guitar pickups, they're less prone to feedback. So the idea would be to take those two resonators, maybe a 4x12 out for the solo gigs. I like to have a lot of bottom end. Take a 4x12, something meaty.
It's the problem, isn't it? Like people say to me, like, "Oh, we've got a small gig, like, but I got to take that. And I got to take the 4x12, and then I'll probably take that as well. You know, it stacks up pretty quick, doesn't it?
Yeah. But I think maybe a kick or some sort of like stomp. I was looking at Wild Dog stomps. Do really good stompers. I like to pin something down. I like to have, when I play against anything, there has to be a sort of beat there. I'm not, I can do it with your thumb, but it's just, I like to have a bit more sort of weight behind it. So that's the plan. Yeah, 2 resonators and a big amp.
I like it. It's minimal, but I imagine it's very effective. No, I look forward to hearing it, bro. It sounds killer.
Which is something raw, I could go out with literally acoustic, but when I go and see something, I want to feel sort of energy. My whole thing is energy with any band. You want to feel something, and I think I can put something across that if there's energy in it, and if I'm ripping it as opposed to kind of like being all gentle and acoustic. So that's the
No, I agree. Looking forward to seeing it live, man. Sounds great.
Finally, a question that I always kind of like to finish on. It's a bit of a hypothetical one. If you could tour with one band from the past and one band from the present, who would they be?
One band from the past. Well, he wouldn't have me on his support, but it would be Frank Zappa. Only just because I'd like to hang out with the guys and just sort of get to know those guys and watch side stage, purely for that reason, not for any other reason. To me, Zappa's God. You know what I mean? I think that the guy's just like so much of it. Just in all aspects, his guitar playing style, just his improvisation, his band. It was, don't get me started on that. But anyway, so yeah, he would be the person from the past. Present. That's a tricky one.
Everybody struggles with this question.
Well, the one from the present. Yeah,
because we're all old fogies, really, aren't we? Before I met Ryan, I didn't listen to music after 1986.
Maybe someone like just a sort of like a big band like say Aerosmith or something, just for the crack. That would be that's something I can think of the top of my head. Again, I'm not sure whether it would work, but I suppose they're blues, aren't they? The Aerosmith are pretty.
Yeah, man, that'd work. I mean, imagine that you could have like you opening, and then would you have Zappa headlining or Aerosmith headlining?
Oh, geez, it would be Zappa. If I had anything to do with the promotion, if I was a promoter, it would be Zappa.
I think that'd be a pretty sick kick because I think Aerosmith don't get the credit they deserve.
I think they're great. They're a great band. The Toys in the Attic is just a cracking album, and the Permanent Vacation. Those albums just, I think they're fantastic.
I remember seeing them at Download a few years back, and I was just blown away by how professional it was. Like I think with bands like that, you never imagine seeing them over here, and then when you see them, you're normally let down because it almost feels like there's something you never really, like a moment you're never going to have, and they just rose to it completely. It was unbelievable.
Yeah. Steven Tyler's stage presence and his kind of stage work is just like he's a bit like Iggy Pop. Those guys they've all got their thing. And Iggy is something else, and
they got better with age, man.
Yeah. Do you ever see the Henry Rollins sort of thing where Henry Rollins talks about trying to outdo him as a stage performer? It's on YouTube. If you look up Henry Rollins and Iggy Pop, there's this sort of like battle they had. Well, it wasn't Iggy's battle; it was Henry Rollins. He just wanted to outperform him, and every time they kept on meeting at festivals, and Iggy would just slaughter him. And he trained. He actually physically worked out for like 6 months to do this one gig so he could outperform him, and he still couldn't. I think you have to watch a YouTube clip.
Yeah, definitely. What Zappa album would you recommend, by the way? Because I've never got into Zappa, and people always are disgusted by him. But when I tell them that, I'm a guitarist as well, and
I would say Overnight Sensation. That's the one. That's the because that's kind of like 70s, like early 70s funk, and it's got Tina Turner and the Islets on backing vocals. It's quite a strange, strange mix.
Overnight Sensation.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one that I would say is the. It kind of went through a strange thing because when the Mothers of Invention were kind of like avant-garde. They were referencing things like Charles Ives and Edgar Varese, and there was Stravinsky, and so there was like this weird kind of like rock band, sort of like referencing classical stuff, and it was like time signature. They were one of the first bands to do like 7, 8, and 5, 4, live. They were the first like prog band. And then it kind of when he went and did his own thing after leaving that sort of stuff, he kind of went sort of like quite slick, and there was a lot more comedy sort of in it. And a lot of his early fans didn't like it, just like taking the piss out of stuff, and But yeah, I would say Night Opera, Overnight Sensation, and another one is Weasels Rip My Flesh, which is great, but that's kind of like slightly harder going, that one,
I'll go on Discogs and I'll get Overnight. What was it? Overnight Success.
Overnight Sensation.
Sensation. I'll get that on vinyl, and if I don't enjoy it, I'll be coming for you.
Vinyl. If you can get an early vinyl version of that, would sound great, man, because the mixes are different. The original mixes were warmer, and they remixed them in the 90s, and they were a lot more digital and sort of like harsh sound.
I've always thought I'd like Mothers of Invention because I like psychedelic nonsense, late 60s, early 70s psychedelic nonsense. So I'll probably enjoy that, but I'll go with your recommendation.
Well, if you like that stuff, Weasels Rip My Flesh. It's a yellow cover with a guy sort of shaving, smiling, and it's half razor, half weasel, ripping his cheek open.
Yeah, that sounds perfect, man. We'll go with that. Perfect. That's that side off sorted. Thanks for chatting to us, man. Really good chat.
Nice one. Yeah, great to meet you guys.
No, I appreciate it, brother. We'll definitely come out and check a show once we get back on the road and do a rigged rundown. I want to hear the resonator through the big angry amp.
Nice one, man.
Sounds like absolute joy, sonic joy.
Yeah.
So Troy's new single "Waiting for Your Love" is out May 21st, and the album "Fire Cosmic" is out August 6th. If you don't already follow Troy on social media, make sure you get involved on the Facebooks, the Instas, the YouTube, and catch him on the road somewhere soon. Thanks, Troy.
Cheers. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, John.
Promise of Mr. Redfern looking ever so beautiful, showing off his vintage guitars was fully given then, wasn't it? Because he did indeed show off his vintage guitars, and it was indeed an ultimate chat. I enjoyed it with Mr. Redfern.
Yeah, really, really cool. As we spoke about before, it was the real interesting curveball for me that I didn't expect from the whole interview was, even prior to the interview, was when I saw the album cover, as we discussed.
Yeah, you really vibed off that, didn't you? Because it's very much your sort of taste.
Well, it's a thing that I wouldn't have thought he'd have been into.
Yeah,
the whole
another element.
Comics and all that kind of stuff. You wouldn't think that.
No, I liked the bit about the session musicians that he got him to record the album with, and how much he vibed off it. Imagine him going into that and feeling like he's got a full package in terms of the studio, in terms of the band he's doing it with. It must have been really compelling and inspiring for him. And I could see his excitement talking about it there, and I get a lot of inspiration from that. And then another guy who's recorded at Rockfield.
Yes, I mean that's
Bad Touch.
That's 2 weeks running.
2 weeks running. Yeah. Obviously Stevie was at Rockfield, so there's obviously a lot of kudos to them guys, because they're both good sounding albums, so there's obviously something happening there. For me in particular, I was really vibing off the Queen inspiration. I had a good back and forth in the interview with Mr. Redfern around all that 70s stuff, and that means a lot to me, because them albums are really important to me. So when other people get inspired by that, it means like that little Mr. Day seal of approval.
The real surprise at the end, it's full of surprises, this one. The real surprise, picking Frank Zappa.
Yes, and since then I've been listening to Mrs. Zappa.
Have you? Right. Yes. So what is your thoughts?
Unexpectedly, I like the nonsense.
Right.
I like the 70s.
He's quite
nonsense.
divisive.
Yeah,
like him.
He's a bit of a Bowie, isn't he? He's like a Bowie on acid. And Bowie was probably on a lot of acid, so I think I like the fact that he reinvented himself, but a lot of it for me is more around the Mothers of Invention, which is what me and Troy spoke about. I like it because there's a lot of jazz influence. I don't listen to a lot of jazz, so to have that sort of fuzzy, jazzy, bluesy nonsense party zone is very good for me, and I've been a part of that party zone for most of my weekends.
Oh, that's really cool.
It's nice. It's like being under the influence of drugs without having to take drugs.
Yeah, that is a strange.
For my long-term future, is probably the best thing.
Similar with Zappa.
So thanks for Troy for bringing me into the fun zone. I appreciate that. It's a good recommendation. The man obviously knows what he's on about.
Yeah, it's the first time we've had that one.
Yes.
The recommendation, so it's an interesting one.
Yeah, 100%.
But yes, enjoyed it. that is all for this week. If you like what we're doing here, you can like our Facebook page, and you'll find every Wednesday from 10 there'll be a teaser trailer revealing our new guest.
Oh yes, and we have many exciting guests in the pipeline. As we've had many exciting guests up to this point, we're very lucky. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe and click the little bell so you never miss a video. Give us all the love. If you're listening on other platforms such as Spotify and Apple Podcasts, what are you doing? We're in YouTube land. And if you're listening on Spotify, you won't know what I've just done.
No, you've missed it.
I've just put sunglasses on.
Anything could have happened.
Anything could have happened. Do you know what I mean? I did tell her I put sunglasses on, but it could have been anything else. I did ruin it, yeah. I did ruin it. But you could see how I ruined it if you're watching on YouTube, which is the cool thing. But yeah, keep supporting the vibe, keep supporting the musicians. We're nearly back to live music. Big love, and we'll see you next week.
Yes, see you next week.